70s, 80s, 90s. And COINTELPRO said, listen, I got to destroy this. I got to stop this. And one thing that stopped it is when black people, when we integrated in the United States in the 60s and 70s, when we got racial integration, we also got cultural integration. And a big part of culture that black people were not fully vested in at that time was consumer culture. It was considered grotesque for a person to flaunt their wealth in the black community. It was considered inappropriate. There was a time where black people who had a lot of money would pretend to be humble. They were still shitty class enemies, but they were, oh, I'm just getting by. But now it has flipped. It used to be that wealthy blacks would pretend to be common people and be just like everybody else. And now you got common people fronting like they rich. You got people who take two $20 bills and 200 single $1 bills and put a big wad of money and just have the 20s on top and post that on social media. That was considered gauche. That was considered gauche. And another thing about consumer culture, in consumer culture, everything is a commodity. Everything is for sale. And so it didn't matter that if the woman you married hated your fucking guts, as long as she understood she with me because I got the money. I don't care how she feel about me. I don't care. We got money. How do we look together? When we hit the parking lot, do we turn heads? Can her swag match my swag? We are a business. You got to run your family like a business. That shit was alien to the black community prior to integration. You run your family like a business. And so as everything had a price tag, everything was available for consumption, everything could be catered to you to meet your desire if you had the money, facts and truth fell into that category. The truth and facts became commodities. You could buy your own truth. Truth was no longer universal. I have my truth. You have your truth. You have your opinion. I have my opinion. And it doesn't matter that your opinion is rooted in research and analysis, and my opinion is rooted in nonsense, in my delusions. All opinions are created equal. It's the money that divides us. Facts are something we can consume and dispose of at our leisure. Just like you go to the cereal store and you got 1,000 brands of cereal, there's 1,000 brands of facts. Well, I have lived the Christian truth. I have the American truth. I have the Moorish truth. I have the Hebrew truth. I have the Islamic truth. Truth became, and facts became a commodity, which eroded our intellectual capacity. And a whole new realm of anti-intellectual leaders and anti-intellectual scholars burst onto the scene. You, without an intellectual culture, you cannot have a revolution. Revolution is an intellectual endeavor. As black people further integrated into the United States, and I don't care how well educated you are, how well trained you are, if you conclude that, hey, this irrational system of hyperaccumulation, of destruction of ecosystem, of oppression of people based on their phenotype, their race, if you conclude, hey, this is the way it is, and I just got to make my way and get mine, then you're not intellectual. You're not rational. You're not even more, you don't even have base morality. You are literally a bad person. So COINTELPRO purged ideological radicalism from the black mainstream. It used to be people like Stokely Carmichael, who later changed his name to Kwame Ture. They were marrying celebrities. They were literally, Black Panthers would be in places where, like, if you were intellectual, if you were revolutionary, you would be rubbing elbows with stars. You'd be hanging out with Marlon Brando. One day you were in the streets fighting the police, snatching billy clubs from cops and beating them with them. The next day you were sipping wine with Marlon Brando. Not saying that this was a good thing or something to strive towards. It was a corrupting influence, but it was the reality at the time. Black radicals, revolutionary guerrillas were prominent people. And you go look at the broadcast of the 80s, you would see Malcolm X speaking uncensored on the airways, and he would be challenged. They would bring people, who that Brinkley guy, they would bring scholars and journalists to sit across, and there was real debate and dialogue and discourse on the media. There was a voice, there were divergent voices. Go look up the Like It Is archives. Like It Is. Look at they're his interviews. Look at his documentaries. And COINTELPRO slowly eroded the intellectual radicalism and said, now we're going to be in STEM. They want black people to study STEM. And even though every time you turn on the TV, all these large tech companies are laying off people or moving overseas, outsourcing. Black people had a long, STEM. And let me tell you something. If you have a person with STEM that doesn't study philosophy, that doesn't have any grasp of physics and the social sciences, a black person who studies STEM without ethics. I took a STEM. I had STEM certification. I worked in a STEM field. And one of the most important classes in that STEM education at SUNY Downstate, a school that trained doctors, nurses, and allied health professionals, was the medical ethics. STEM without ethics, STEM without culture, you are literally an automaton. I know this technical skills. I don't understand anything. I didn't take art interpretation. Ain't nobody going to hire you music appreciation. That's not just so you can better interpret art. That is to enhance your critical thinking. That is to stimulate all components of your brain, your conscious and subconscious, your limbic and cerebral cortex, and your limbic brain. It is to fully not just awaken all elements of the brain, but to train all elements of your brain to coordinate and interact with each other. If you only stimulate and cultivate the technological aspect of your brain, you are not fully human. And we fell into this box. So I got somebody on here talking nonsense about what lineage from Africa. We are members of the African diaspora. That is a population. That is a legitimate population of African people. You don't need, and though it's nice trivia, you don't need to know your tribe. You know that you are a member of the global African diaspora. And that is a tribe, that is a community unto itself, that is tied to and related to the African whole. But I digress. So I kind of have a rough breakdown here, and from how we got from Black power to Black exploitation and what happened. So in the 50s, we had this integrationist movement, and then we moved on to the 60s to Black power, and then they wanted to take the politics out of Black power and just have it be aesthetic. So in the 70s, they had the Black pride or Black is beautiful theme, and then in the 80s, Black people with the prominence of people like Cosby and Oprah Winfrey, where the greed is good, and where basically the theme, we went from Black integration, we wanted equality with white people. White people violently suppressed our attempts to be full-fledged Americans and to bleed into America's melting pot. So that provoked rage. The failure of integration provoked rage. And so that's when you got the Black Power movement, and it went from peaceful marching, allowing white people to spit on us and throw their bodily fluids on us as we sang "We Shall Overcome," to Black people burning down over 200 cities in one summer. Right? And then after that, they were like, well, let's give Black people concessions. First, we were asking for integration. They said no. And so we said, now we want liberation. And so when we organized for liberation, they were like, whoa, okay, fine, we'll give you integration. We'll give you integration. That's why whenever you're in negotiation, you always ask for well beyond what you want, because they're going to always get less. But so we asked for integration. They violently said no, killed Dr. King. We rose up in violent revolt, armed violent revolt. So then they gave us less than what we asked for. They gave us what we asked for initially. And then they said, okay, now that you have integration, when you wanted liberation, you settled for concessions, integrations, and political and social reforms. And so now you don't need Black power. You need Black pride. Go look at the emergence of the Black pride movement. It was not an uplifting. It was a reduction. It was a reduction. It was gutting, taking the militant and political aspects out of Black power and turn Black power from a material reality to an aesthetic look. So in the 70s, dark and lovely, Afro sheen, and as long as it looked Black, we accept it. It looks Black. So these pimps, and these pimps is these beautiful Black men and these beautiful Black women who were the hoes, and beautiful Black cars. It's beautiful. It's Black. Who cares about the political elements or the conscious element or the social cultural element? Everything Black. So we were down for Black revolutionaries, and then we cheering for Black pimps, Black exploitation, Black gangsters. Anything as long as it's Black, yay, right? No, wrong. That's what the erosion of the intellectual input. So damn. And so you had Black is beautiful, Black is pride. And then the 80s, Black pride wasn't even adequate. That's when Negroes started wearing blue-eyed contacts. And that was the Oprah Winfrey Cosby era of the 80s, where greed is good, or green is the only color that matters. Green surpassed Black. And then in the 90s, you had a brief resurgence. Malcolm X was resurrected. You had Black books movements and conscious hip hop of the 90s, which again was quelled by 2000 in the post-racial era. And we're going to pick this up Wednesday night. Bro Diallo broadcast. Please like, share, subscribe. Got a little sidetracked. I will not apologize. Because I think it had to be said. I said what I said. I didn't need to say it, but I'll say it again if I have to. Shout out to Richard Pryor. Anyway, Bro Diallo Show. You can like, share, subscribe with your friends, lovers, allies, and enemies. You can support the Bro Diallo broadcast if you're watching via YouTube or Facebook. You'll see scrolling across your screen. You can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1 a month. Patreon.com/Diallo Kenyatta. You can cash out Bro Diallo or Venmo Bro Diallo to help support, sustain the broadcast, sustain the radio station, and to sustain me, so I can get me some Justin's vegan organic peanut butter cups. So help a brother out. Please contribute. I appreciate everyone for listening. I will be back on the airways to complete the Hotepification part 2. We will go into detail about the con man consciousness, about the various people using Black consciousness as a con, and the scourge of anti-intellectualism, cultism, and occultism. And as always, when we finish these series of discussions, we will talk about on-the-ground material grassroots solutions to these various issues. I appreciate you for tuning in, and I hope you continue to support the Bro Diallo broadcast along with Q4 Radio and the larger progressive media, independent progressive media apparatus.